up on the platforms. Let's go. All right, folks. So I have no idea what happened. We did not drop on StreamYard. We did not drop on Switchboard Live. So we have no idea why we were stopped on YouTube and Facebook, but we are back up. We have a full slate of panelists. So let me just do a reset and we go back to our panel. Of course, A. Scott Bolden, former chair, National Bar Association Political Action Committee; Monique Presley, legal analyst, crisis manager; D. Hawkins Hagler, former Georgia State Representative. We have Tom Bonnier, CEO of Target Smart; Rayshawn Ray, Rubenstein Fellow of Governance Studies at Brookings Institution; also Melanie Campbell. She is with the President and CEO of the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation, along Victoria Burke. She writes for NNPA as well. Before we were rudely dropped there, Tom, you were speaking, and go right ahead.
Well, we were talking about in terms of the consequences and the moment of reckoning for the Republican Party, and the fact that this needs to be a moment of reckoning for them, but not just for the party, for the country. That it's a cancer that they have created, that they have let into the bloodstream and the body of our American democracy, and they are truly the only ones who can remove it. But I think the challenges are how we see it's being dealt with at this moment, and it's obviously very early at this point. But again, we see no reports of those terrorists who stormed and took over the Capitol being arrested, being removed in cuffs. In fact, we've seen videos of them walking out and walking away. Now, hopefully they will face justice, but that certainly points to a level of white privilege that is breathtaking. And so we'll see. In order to begin to heal this democracy, if I had control of things there, and I don't, but Congress needs to return. They need to vote immediately to accept the results of this election and the electoral college votes. And then they need to vote to impeach and remove President Trump. I think it's that simple.
What we saw here, so we lost D, we lost Scott. Melanie, I want to go to you. This is also a lesson. Tom referenced this earlier, Melanie. Mainstream media play games with this.
Right.
They kept acting like no big deal. Oh, Trump's tantrum. For the longest, they wouldn't use the word lie. Those of us who study our history, we saw this. Mm-hmm. We knew what was coming. Right. We knew that man loses. This was going to happen. And so when Tom says, I need to see people arrested, you damn right. I need to see people in twisty ties behind their back. I need to see 18-wheeler paddy wagons. Mm-hmm. But what this was, no, we don't want to do that. We don't want to sit here. We don't want to hurt their feelings. They're Trump people. Damn their feelings. These people literally want to overthrow the government. That's what you got to deal with. That's what you got. You got to deal with them like Trump.
Right. And that's what they are, right? And Roland, you said something earlier about how long this has been going on, right? This has been going on since Obama got elected, right? They didn't just start. Trump, stoked what was already there. So that's why he started dealing with the birtherism issue. So this has been going on. I remember being on that mall when Dr. Haidt was still living and was still doing the Black family reunion on the mall and coming to a Black Leadership Forum meeting and her having a concern. Why? Because we knew that all of the what quote unquote Tea Party folks were showing up. I had never seen that level of hatred in my adult life, at least. What I saw, and many of us went out there just to kind of be a team within the civil rights community to ease some of her concerns, and being on that mall and seeing that level of hatred. So it didn't just start, right? He took it and he put it on steroids. And the reckoning what we saw today and it's still going on. Because they're still on the streets, and I see them pulling up buses. So hopefully we're gonna see some people get locked up. But at the end of the day, this is just the culmination of it. And they kept on playing with this fire. They kept on playing with it after he got elected, Mitch McConnell and all the rest of them, and Ted Cruz and that whole cabal. I was going to say something else, but that cabal, and all of them have to really, because at the end of the day, when they came in there, they were pissed with them too. They were pissed with Mike Pence. It was going to be an equal opportunity problem had they gotten in there while they were still in there, right? So the question becomes, and you're right, the media getting ratings and just let this stuff go on and on and on, and so we're at this inflection point where to thank God for Black folks and the Black vote. Because we saved this democracy, and we keep on saving it. And in Georgia, with Ossoff and Reverend Warnock being able to come and have that 50-50 vote. And then the other part of the optics of all of that, it's like, it's such a time as this. We are in this moment in this country, right? And Black people are stepping in, but we're carrying the load of this democracy on our backs, right? And so the demand has to be in this first 100 days, as this administration come in, they got to play hardball. If they want to see this democracy, this United States of America be in America, they got to come in ready to get the work done. And yeah, you can be bipartisan, but you have the first woman and the first Black and Asian American woman who is now has the tiebreaker. You have the White House, the House and the Senate. And so the first 100, they got to come in there and get some things done. And that Department of Justice got a lot of work to do. That Homeland Security got a lot of work to do. FBI got a lot of work to do. And I suspect that they need to lock up as many of them. The fact that they have those folks on camera, they need to be prosecuted. Because if they don't, then what? Because racism never left the shores of this nation. So those folks have always been here, but they were given the kind of platforms to do what we saw happen. I don't even say that's the culmination, but it shows when the rallies of the madness wasn't enough. They had to come in and show up, and then somebody died. I don't know if they were a Trump person.
Yeah. Now we actually
died today.
Yeah, we showed the video. We showed the video earlier. Of that woman, the gruesome video of her. She was shot in the neck. She did indeed die. I need to go to Lauren real quick. Lauren, this just in. Stephanie Grisham, who is the White House Chief of Staff and spokesperson for the First Lady. She also is former press secretary and communications director for Donald Trump. She has resigned effective immediately in the wake of these protests. Still no profiles encouraged from many Trump people. The reality is they stood by this man, allowing these things to happen. He leaves in 14 days when his term is up. But guess what, Lauren? These people, if you have worked for Trump and you are working for Trump, that stench will never go away. It will always be with them. Anybody, Black MAGA supporters, any of these people, that stench is staying with them forever. We will never forget.
As it should, because this is what they're doing, is they're leading an insurrection against our democracy. That's what they're doing. And in the case of these idiots, Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley, they're doing it so that they can become famous and they can become the next Donald Trump. That's their big thing. It's embarrassing. It's crazy. It's dangerous. It's stupid. It's everything that you said it was. One of my best friends is a U.S. Capitol Police officer on Senate chambers. He obviously has been texting me all day. And I have to tell you that, there's no part of this really that should have surprised anybody. It's just like what you said, Roland, about the fact that we could see this building up. And, to go to what Melanie said, we saw the beginning of this with the Tea Party in 2010, when Barack Obama took office and they sort of created this fake movement against him to stop this government. Right. And then the next thing, of course, that happens is they created their own reality, really. And now it has come to this. They basically created this ruse that the election was somehow stolen from Donald Trump. So this represents a triumph of misinformation and deliberate disinformation. and the president lying, and finally Twitter now is finally doing something. I mean, what takes so long for these things to happen? The guy has been inciting violence for 2 years. What takes so long for these things to happen? I have no idea. So I don't know what else to say. I just think that my phone is blowing up because I do have a lot of friends on Capitol Hill, and the Senate is going to come in at 8 o'clock. Apparently, Kathy McMorris Rogers, a Republican in the House, has decided to drop her objection to the certification of the election. What a novel idea. I guess violence has to be incited for you to figure this out. I mean, how stupid are these people that it takes this? And basically, those members are in fear just like everybody else. But the fact that it takes violence for us to get to this moment is incredible and embarrassing.
Rayshawn, this is an image right here where reporters were inside of the U.S. House chamber. Again, here are security personnel on the floor of the United States House, guns drawn, pointed at the door, a barricade blocking the door to keep these thugs from walking into the U.S. House chamber. That is how significant this was that we saw. But not only that, this also, give me a second, there's another image that we saw. This is from the Twitter feed of John Lynch of WTRF. These folks, literally, these Trump people, had a noose, had a hangman's noose built as a part of their march. This is the messaging. This is the messaging that they were sending out to the country. This is what they were sending. Again, when you start talking about the craziness that we are seeing from these folks, it is unbelievable, Rayshawn. And the real question now is, Republicans, what are you going to do? And to Lauren's point, just because this one person said, "Oh, I'm dropping my objection," hell no. You will forever be remembered as being with these people. And so it's about to be a whole bunch of folks jumping ship because what they now realize, this ain't a game, baby. A person is dead. This is no longer a game. Now, let's see what's next. Rayshawn, go ahead.
I mean, Roland, you're exactly right. You know, racism is so American that when people protest racism, people think you're protesting America. And when people engage in racist acts, it's viewed as being normative. Some of the things that we heard from Tom and President Campbell, from Melanie, were spot on in terms of thinking about how Trump injected a steroid of hate into the bloodstream of America. Of course, it was there, but it was kind of laying dormant in various ways. And we've seen, not only over the past 4 years, but if people have said since Obama, irking up when we have nooses, when we have people storming the Capitol. I want people to think about this. Imagine if the people behind those doors of that image you just showed were Black. Imagine if they look like most of us. Imagine the bloodbath we will be seeing at the Capitol because of what happened. Because see, there are other images during Black Lives Matter protests of gates being up, of the U.S. Capitol Police and the National Guard standing guard of these buildings, putting property over people. But the minute they do it, we don't see that. There are a couple things to note here. The work that I do on policing, I always talk about how bad apples come from rotten trees in policing. Well, these bad apple police officers come from the same rotten tree of these domestic terrorists. And mind you, they have built these trees and then strung our people up on these nooses that they put before the state capitol. And as our dead bodies fell, then the soil underneath became a part of us. That racism is embedded within the very soil and fabric of the United States of America. And there are a couple of stats people need to know here on why this is important. You and others highlighted this earlier. First, there was a Department of Homeland Security report. There have been several, but a couple of years ago, I testified on one along with the president of Brookings, General 4-star Marine General John Allen. And in that report, it talked about the way white nationalist groups, white supremacist groups were infiltrating police departments again. We've seen a lot of that. And what we saw today, we have to ask ourselves, as people said before, how do we see people climbing the Capitol walls? I mean, it looked like straight out of a movie. People climbing the Capitol walls, police officers letting in, going through security that normally at times can look like Beirut. There had to be something going on. And this is the key point. If we look at Georgia and we look at changing demographics, Georgia is one of these. And I wrote about this, and Melanie Campbell essentially mentioned this. I wrote a piece at Brookings that said how Black Americans saved Biden and American democracy. If we look at the state of Georgia, the Black population since 1990 has increased from 1.8 million to about 3.5 million. That shift is a great migration back to the South. That's not just happening in Georgia, but it's happening in North Carolina, that's happening in Mississippi. And we're starting to see a spread. And we also have to be careful, particularly when white people do this. They're like, oh, we're the minority. Well, actually, when you break down the major racial groups in the United States, you're still well over 50% of the population. But that's the key point. The way they think about whiteness, it's about protecting white supremacy and whiteness versus everything else. And they can't handle the pluralistic society that we are moving toward as we get fair and equitable democracy and people being able to get to the polls.
This, Monique, I'm gonna go to Monique, I'm gonna go to Tom. Monique, this Senator Tammy Duckworth said as they were being rushed off of the floor, a quick thinking U.S. Senate staffer said, wait a minute, grab the electoral college votes. This is a photo of those actual votes. If it wasn't for that quick thinking staffer, these electoral college votes could have been destroyed when these white domestic terrorists stormed the floor of the U.S. Senate. Then we would truly have been in a constitutional crisis because we would not have had those actual signed votes. Your thoughts on the fact that Congress is going to reconvene to go through with this, and also Nancy Pelosi, she sent out a tweet. You sent this to me moments ago. Let me pull this tweet up from Nancy Pelosi, where she made it perfectly clear that Congress is going to do their job. This is what she said: today's shameful assault on our democracy, anointed at the highest level of government, must not deter us from our responsibility to the Constitution. Tonight, we will move forward with the certification of President-elect Joe Biden's election. Monique, go.
Yeah, if you're looking for the original gangster, that's her. So all this they trying to do, forget about it. She's another breed. And I was waiting for, because I'd been hearing privately that they had committed to coming back tonight no matter what. I was waiting for something publicly to be said. So you see a few minutes ago, she did confirm the Constitution. You know, the Constitution requires them to do this today. And so they at least have to try, as long as it is still today, to get it done. And Senator Schumer is saying the same thing. Mitch, I'm sure wherever his bunker is, he's probably saying the same thing because he's done with all of this. So the fact that they're going to come back and try to meet and get as far as they can, and we'll see, right, how many of these congresspersons and senators who were part of the seditious behavior, who were part of the insurrection, will still be a part of it now that they've had to shelter in place, now that a woman has died, now that police officers have been injured and taken to the hospital. We'll see what they do. They're going to have an opportunity to begin again, but I am glad that they are going to stick to it because, as I said, I'm still wearing blue. You know, no matter what y'all did today, Georgia's blue now. Good luck. Georgia had voted for a Democratic president and now has not one, but two Democratic senators. Yes, and John Lewis's seat is now filled by the first woman and first Black woman to ever hold the seat. This is the first Black man to hold. Listen, the youngest man in the Senate right now is coming out of Georgia. So it takes a fight. And there's gonna be blowback because this is Custer's last stand, everybody. Google it so you can understand what I'm saying. But they still going down. This country is not what it was. And no, just your whiteness and you're over 50 gets you nothing by fiat. It isn't just because you exist anymore. And so people will have to adjust. And adjusting and change requires disruption. And they did their best, but still.
I want to bring
President Joe
Tom.
Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris.
Tom, today it was the race was called for John Ossoff here in Georgia. So John Ossoff, age 33, becomes a United States Senator, defeating Republican incumbent David Perdue. He will serve for a 6-year term. Pastor Raphael Warnock also beat Senator Kelly Loeffler. He will fill the remaining term of Johnny Isakson. He will be running for re-election in 2022. You broke down the numbers, and I really believe first of all, all of these things are all come together here, Tom, because what we're dealing with here, we're dealing with the changing face of America. We're dealing with America looking completely different than what it used to look like. And I go back to what I said when I said in 2009, we were living in this age of white fear. There was a poll that was taken, and the question was asked, are you optimistic about the future of America for your children? This was shortly after President Barack Obama was inaugurated. Every group other than white America, a majority said yes. I saw that poll and I said, y'all buckle up. Glenn Beck, you heard him on Fox News. Obama hates white people. You saw the vicious attacks that Fox News and Fox Business did on him. Then they took it to a whole new level when Trump gets elected. You're seeing the people out there. You're seeing Lou Dobbs, and you're seeing Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham, Peter Hegseth. You're seeing these people, Janine Pirro, align with him. Then you see One America News and then Newsmax go even further. These people have been yelling and screaming for the last 4 weeks. Oh no, he can still be president. It can still happen. They are denying anything, and what they are doing is they've been feeding the QAnon folks. You got that crazy woman right here from in Georgia who said that, oh yeah, the election was stolen for Trump, but then she said that her election, when she's on the exact same ballot, him was good. So how is yours good, but then his was bad? You had this feeding into it, and so what you had is you've had, Tom, this hate that has been brewing. Mark Levin and conservative talk radio and all of these people, folks who did not like Trump, but then they all flipped to Trump. You have folks like Michael Savage, who was savaging Donald Trump, saying how evil he was, and saying to the other Republicans, other conservative talk radio people, what the hell are y'all doing aligning with this guy? But it's the electoral map, Tom, that's fueling this anger and this rage, because they can't stand it that we now are using that power in that ballot box. And Tom, if they think what we just saw in Georgia was a fluke, they better think again when Stacey Abrams is on the ballot facing Brian Kemp if he wins the primary in 2022.
Amen. I think it's so important here to take a step back as you did, and to recognize how this happened in Georgia. And as my fellow panelists know, especially a former representative from Georgia, this wasn't something that happened overnight. It's based on organizing that has happened for years and years and years. But I want to focus on this year because I think it's a story that hasn't been told enough. When we think of when the pandemic began in this country, and all field organizing came to a screeching halt across this country, something that's generally to Democrats' advantage, to go out and knock doors, register voters, and it stopped. Voter registration basically stopped. And then to the extent that voter registration was happening, suddenly Republicans were out registering Democrats. And then what happened in late May when the video of George Floyd's murder was released and the demonstrations began. And I remember that night, that it was a Thursday night at the end of May, I believe May 29th, when the demonstrations began in Atlanta. And Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms and Killer Mike both went up on a press conference, and they made this plea and stressed the importance of voting, that enfranchisement is going to be our most powerful weapon in fighting back against again, this cancer in our country. And so I looked the next day because the primary was already happening in Georgia. Early voting was happening. And I wanted to see what impact that would have. And what we saw is literally the next day, the African-American share of the early vote, the early in-person vote, doubled the next day. The youth vote doubled the next day. And we began to track that over the summer because, as we know, the Biden campaign made the decision to not go out and organize in person. But what we saw, wherever these Black Lives Matter demonstrations happened, voter registration surged. And when you look at the results, not just in Georgia, I can look at it and say that this result wouldn't have happened if that movement wasn't out there organizing, but also inspiring voters. And when you look at the exit polls in Georgia, we see a majority of voters in the general election in Georgia said they had a favorable opinion of the Black Lives Matter movement. And in fact, there was no question that was a better predictor of how someone would vote in that presidential election than their opinion of the Black Lives Matter movement. And so you can't separate the two. You're absolutely right, Roland, in terms of this all being connected, because you see the white privilege reaction to this, to the undeniable progress of demographics in organizing, in justice. And to be clear, this is only one step in the right direction. Now we have to get past the performative acts, and we need to see Congress actually make good on this. We need to see them renew the Voting Rights Act. We need to see them do so many things so that this doesn't become one moment in time. Because to be clear, Black voters delivered Georgia. They delivered these other key states. And so now Congress is going to need to act.
The thing that's interesting about what Tom just laid out there, Melanie, is we had all these Democrats. Oh my God, defund the police is going to kill us, is going to kill us. Guess what? Loeffler and Perdue and Mitch McConnell's PAC, they attacked constantly. Ossoff and Warnock constantly would defund the police. It didn't work. This is what happens when you pay attention to the people out there. 112,000 people who did not vote in the November 3rd election, Melanie, voted in the runoff. Of the 112,000, 40% of them, 30% of them were 18 to 29.
Right.
Of the 40% of the 30%,
Black.
They were Black. So for all these people who said, oh, defund, and yes, I got great respect for Congressman Jim Clyburn, but he's wrong. He's wrong. The Democrats who lost because they did not run smart campaigns. And so if you're able to energize young people and compete and go door to door and canvass, then you can win. Please, Carolyn Bordeaux won a seat in Congress and they hit her with defund the police.
Right. And Roland, I that whole thing, you would think we were in the same year when some of the rhetoric came from the Democratic Party, from some folks in our party. In our party, I am a Democrat, and so it's like, did we just not go through the summer we went through? We know why our people what the concerns are. It didn't just start. It just escalated based on what happened with George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and then Breonna Taylor, and the killings just kept coming. So at the end of the day, we knew the policing, police reform. People. My thing is, you get caught up in semantics. You ought to be able to, as a candidate, be able to break down what you mean, right, and not get caught in that. And then in reality, is a lot of the seats that they lost were going to be hard to keep anyway. I question what was going with the DCCC. That's another question. Like, how did y'all not see? Get spending all this money. Y'all don't know where the beat is. So when you pointing at you can't say great young people turned out and then, oh, we lost because young people talked about defunding the police. It's an oxymoron, in my opinion, right? So that's my opinion. But at the end of the day, these young people are turned on. What's powerful is they have connected, that protest and being in the streets to the polls, and now looking at these next 100 days. That's what I'm loving, because I'm seeing a lot of young people who are in leadership, my sister Tamika and so many others, who are connecting those dots and being able to see that. And so for the Democrats, that George Floyd Justice and Policing Act needs to be like a #1 priority, because we voted across generations. And Roland, the exit poll that we released right after the November election showed that Black men, Black women, young people, senior people, across the board, the #1 issue continues to be for Black people. What do we want the next president to deal with and address? And that's systemic structural racism. That is criminal justice reform, policing reform, and of course COVID, because it's killing us disproportionately. So that's what they need to focus on. And so now, with all that has happened and all of that hand wringing, look what happened again. Black people in Georgia showed up and showed out, and you just gave the data about the young people showed up. And so we got to make sure that we all do our part to demand that hold our friends accountable to what we voted for. And so don't come in there talking about all this bipartisan whatever. Do what you need to do to in that first 100 days to show that what we Black folks risk their lives. You're one of them, getting out there out in the middle of a pandemic. I wish I could have been out there with you for the second half, but I couldn't make it out there personally because of my COVID experience. But at the end of the day, our people also, these organizers, these Black Lives Matter, seasoned civil rights organizations, all of our organizations risk our lives to turn this thing around. And so we gotta make sure that we hold them folks accountable. And now they've got the Senate, they got the House, they got the White House. Take care of business.
In just a second, the U.S. Senate is going to return supposedly at 8 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to do a final round of comments with our panelists. I will start first with you, Grisham.
I think when we look at the type of incidents that have happened today, what it really speaks to is that, again, this is what America is. And if we want to change it, and we just heard Melanie Campbell laying it out, the blame that has been put on progressives simply is not what the data show. Instead, what the data show is like what happened in Georgia. There are a lot of people who want changes. And make no mistake that what happened in Georgia, like what happened in Pennsylvania, like what happened in Michigan, Black people did that. We need to be very clear about that. But coupled with that, we're also white liberals and white progressives who want to see changes to what's happening, along with people who are Latinos and Asians. And if people really want to do that, they have seen their vote matter. And people should be tuning in to what's happening because, look, Tom said it, Melanie said it, other people said it. This is American history. People will be writing and talking about this forever. This moment lives on. It's up to us to decide what we want the next chapter to look like after we continue to deal with the division that we're dealing with right now.
Sean went out.
Lon, are you there?
Oh, I'm there. I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry.
There we go. Your final comment.
Sorry. I don't know what's left really to say other than that, in 14 days, we get rid of Donald Trump and hopefully he gets prosecuted. There's talk of the House members moving against other House members to expel them from Congress for staging and planning an insurrection on the U.S. House, which, as another panelist mentioned, we haven't seen since the war of 1812. I think that I'm game for that. I'm good with that. I don't know what McConnell's going to say. That nonsense that he said this morning, which really to me was not strong enough. He's got to go a lot further than that. These people have got to get some guts against Donald Trump and stop being afraid of Donald Trump. I have no idea why they're afraid of Donald Trump, quite frankly, or his supporters. People keep bringing up that there's 70 million people that voted for Well, there's 80 million that voted for Joe Biden. What about them? What about those people? So I can never completely understand why people are afraid of Donald Trump or why we continue with this ridiculous charade of allowing somebody to just completely lie to people and put out misinformation, set up an incredibly dangerous situation in our country, to say the least. So let's see what happens if people can find some guts tonight when they do return to session, which they are in a few minutes. Tomorrow's another day. I don't think it's a coincidence that, and it's already been brought up, but it is worth saying again, that Ossoff and Warnock end up winning, of course, last night, and tying the Senate and throwing Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump's people out of power. And then by some coincidence, Donald Trump stages this ridiculousness today to take the attention off of all that and onto this madness. But let's see what happens next.
All right, then. Final comment from Tom Bonnier.
Thank you, Roland. Thanks for having me on. I just keep thinking about how politics in this country has a way of holding up a mirror to our true selves. And I think about today and the juxtaposition of a Black man and a Jewish man being named winners in Senate elections in Georgia and how uplifting that is. But at the same time, I think of Cori Bush, a woman who has been tear gassed at demonstrations, sitting in the United States Capitol and seeing these terrorists coming in and then seeing these terrorists walk out. And I think those two things are true reflections of where we are as a country and where we have to go. There's reason for hope, but there's so much work to be done.
Appreciate it. Thanks a bunch. Monique Presley, you're the last word. Monique, are you muted? Or am I muted? All right, Monique, unmute yourself.
I did. Can you hear me now?
There you go. Yeah, we got you. Go ahead.
Great. I only have one thing to say. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did. It never will. Find out just what any people take quietly and submit to, and you have found out the exact measure of injustice and wrong which will be imposed upon them. Georgia spoke, not quietly. They spoke in their words. The United States spoke with their words, and all of these words were our votes. But Frederick Douglass said, it will continue until we resist. The limits of tyrants are prescribed by the endurance of those they oppress. We're done. Okay, so the people who you saw today, that's not the story. I was out there in those streets after Donald Trump was elected. We had all our pink pussy hats on. There were 1 million of us. Only like 10 people were arrested. No property was destroyed. We knew how to protest our government and still maintain a democracy. These insurrectionists, these anarchists, these thugs, these criminals, ignore that. The government will meet tonight and they will do business. And then we will have President Joe Biden and we will have Vice President Kamala Harris. And we will have a majority with Madam President of the Senate in order to get business done. So whatever this mess was today, and it was horrible, I'm still encouraged. Y'all have a good night.
All right, then. We thank all of our panelists for joining us. We certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much. For Scott and Dee, who also dropped earlier, thank you so very much. What I'm going to do is, Keenan, we can go ahead and drop our panelists. I'm going to say my final comments. I'm also trying to stretch this out a bit. Hopefully, we will be able to stick with this feed, waiting for the Senate to come back into session. This is the first session of the 117th Congress, where they were the counting of the electoral college ballots. Folks, if you want to understand why this platform matters, it's because the things that we saw today, we told you this was coming. Told you this was coming. I've been saying it for years. Said it 11 years ago, 10 years ago, 9 years ago, 8 years ago. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Said it. Broke this whole thing out. Folks were, oh, nah, we don't think so. Well, these are just games. No, they're not. The reason these platforms are important is because it prepares for you for what is coming next. It puts you in a position where you can then begin to understand how we are to battle. And that's what Roland Martin Unfiltered is all about. Earlier, I have no idea, again, why YouTube booted us. It could be when we showed the photo of the noose or the video of the woman who had been shot. But the reality is this, 16,500 people were watching us simultaneously live. That's the largest number we've ever had. We had more than 3,000 people who were watching us on Facebook. So we had nearly 20,000 people who were watching us simultaneously live. Folks, that is significant. And we're going to continue to build this. We're going to continue to build this and provide a platform for voices who ordinarily would not get called by these networks to be able to speak. See, the other thing is this here. We're not playing games with these people. We understand what's going on. We understand the power. In fact, let's go to the joint session of Congress. That should be Vice President Mike Pence is in the chair.
Of U.S. Capitol Police, federal, state, and local law enforcement. The violence was quelled. The Capitol is secured, and the people's work continues. We condemn the violence that took place here in the strongest possible terms. We grieve the loss of life in these hallowed halls, as well as the injuries suffered by those who defended our Capitol today. And we will always be grateful to the men and women who stayed at their posts to defend this historic place. To those who wreaked havoc in our Capitol today, you did not win. Violence never wins. Freedom wins. And this is still the people's house. And as we reconvene in this chamber, the world will again witness the resilience and strength of our democracy. For even in the wake of unprecedented violence and vandalism at this Capitol, the elected representatives of the people of the United States have assembled again on the very same day to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. So may God bless the lost, the injured, and the heroes forged on this day. May God bless all who serve here and those who protect this place. And may God bless the United States of America. Let's get back to work.
Mr. President,
The Majority Leader.
I ask unanimous consent the Majority Leader and the Democratic Leader be allowed to speak, and that the time not count against 2 hours of debate in relation to the objection raised on the state of Arizona.
Is there objection? Without objection, so ordered.
On the state of the American people, the United States Senate will not be intimidated. We will not be kept out of this chamber by thugs, mobs, or threats. We will not bow to lawlessness or intimidation. We are back at our posts. We will discharge our duty under the Constitution and for our nation. And we're going to do it tonight. This afternoon, Congress began the process of honoring the will of the American people and counting the Electoral College votes. We've fulfilled this solemn duty every 4 years for more than 2 centuries. Whether our nation's been at war or at peace, under all manner of threats, even during an ongoing armed rebellion and the Civil War, the clockwork of our democracy has carried on. The United States and the United States Congress have faced down much greater threats than the unhinged crowd we saw today. We've never been deterred before and will be not deterred today. They tried to disrupt our democracy. They failed. They failed. They failed to attempt to obstruct the Congress. This failed insurrection only underscores how crucial the task before us is for our republic. Our nation was founded precisely so that the free choice of the American people is what shapes our self-government and determines the destiny of our nation. Not fear, not force, but the peaceful expression of the popular will. Now, we assembled this afternoon to count our citizens' votes and to formalize their choice of the next president. Now we're going to finish exactly what we started. We'll complete the process the right way, by the book. We'll follow our precedents, our laws, and our Constitution to the letter. And we will certify the winner of the 2020 presidential election. Criminal behavior will never dominate the United States Congress. This institution is resilient. Our democratic republic is strong. The American people deserve nothing less.
Democratic leader.
Mr. President. Mr. President, it is very, very difficult to put into words what has transpired today. I have never lived through or even imagined an experience like the one we have just witnessed in this Capitol. President Franklin Roosevelt set aside December 7th, 1941 as a day that will live in infamy. Unfortunately, we can now add January 6th, 2021 to that very short list of dates in American history that will live forever in infamy. This temple to democracy was desecrated, its windows smashed, our offices vandalized. The world saw Americans' elected officials hurriedly ushered out because they were in harm's way. The House and Senate floors were places of shelter until the evacuation was ordered, leaving rioters to stalk these hallowed halls. Lawmakers and our staffs, average citizens who love their country, serve it every day, feared for their lives. I understand that one woman was shot and tragically lost her life. We mourn her and feel for her friends and family. These images were projected to the world. Foreign embassies cabled home their home capitals to report the harrowing scenes at the very heart of our democracy. This will be a stain on our country, not so easily washed away. The final, terrible, indelible legacy of the 45th President of the United States, undoubtedly our worst. I want to be very clear. Those who perform these reprehensible acts cannot be called protesters. No, these were rioters and insurrectionists, goons and thugs, domestic terrorists. They do not represent America. They were a few thousand violent extremists who tried to take over the Capitol building and attack our democracy. They must and should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law, hopefully by this administration, if not, certainly by the next. They should be provided no leniency. I want to thank the many of the Capitol Hill Police and Secret Service and local police who kept us safe today and worked to clear the Capitol and return it to its rightful owners and its rightful purpose. I want to thank the leaders, Democrat and Republican, House and Senate. It was Speaker Pelosi, Leader McConnell, Leader McCarthy, and myself who came together and decided that these thugs would not succeed, that we would finish the work of that our Constitution requires us to complete in the very legislative chambers of the House and Senate that were desecrated, but we know always belong to the people and do again tonight. But make no mistake, my friends, today's events did not happen spontaneously. The president who promoted conspiracy theories that motivated these thugs, the president who exhorted them to come to our nation's capital, egged them on. He hardly ever discourages violence and more often encourages it. This president bears a great deal of the blame. This mob was in good part President Trump's doing, incited by his words, his lies. This violence, in good part, his responsibility, his everlasting shame. Today's events certainly would not have happened without him. Now, January 6th will go down as one of the darkest days in recent American history. A final warning to our nation about the consequences of a demagogic president, the people who enable him, the captive media that parrots his lies, and the people who follow him as he attempts to push America to the brink of ruin. As we reconvene tonight, let us remember, in the end, all this mob has really accomplished is to delay our work by a few hours. We will resume our responsibilities now, and we will finish our task tonight. House and Senate chambers will be restored good as new, ready for legislating in short order. The counting of the electoral votes is our sacred duty. Democracy's roots in this nation are deep, they're strong, and they will not be undone, ever, by a group of thugs. Democracy will triumph, as it has for centuries. So to my fellow Americans who were shocked and appalled by the images on their televisions today, and who are worried about the future of this country, let me speak to you directly. The divisions in our country clearly run deep, but we are a resilient, forward-looking, and optimistic people, and we will begin the hard work of repairing this nation tonight, because here in America, we do hard things. In America, we always overcome our challenges. I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
Majority Leader.
I yield 2 minutes to the Senator from Oklahoma, Senator Lankford.
Senator from Oklahoma.
The Vice President, you said things more eloquently than how we say it in Oklahoma. In Oklahoma, we'd say something like, why in God's name would someone think attacking law enforcement and occupying the United States Capitol is the best way to show that you're right? Why would you do that? Rioters and thugs don't run the Capitol. We're the United States of America. We disagree on a lot of things, and we have a lot of spirited debate in this room. But we talk it out, and we honor each other, even in our disagreement. That person is not my enemy. That's my fellow American. And while we disagree on things and disagree strongly at times, we do not encourage what happened today, ever. I want to join my fellow senators in saying thank you to the Capitol Hill Police, the law enforcement, the National Guard, the Secret Service, who stood in harm's way while we were here debating they were pushing back. And I was literally interrupted mid-sentence speaking here because we were all unaware of what was happening right outside this room because of their faithfulness and because of what they have done. And I want to thank them. Ronald Reagan once said, "Peace is not the absence of conflict. It is the ability to handle conflict by peaceful means." The peaceful people in my state in Oklahoma want their questions answered, but they don't want this, what happened today. They want to do the right thing, and they also want to do it the right way. They want to honor the constitutional process, but they also want to have debate about election security because they want to make sure it's right, which is why it's an important issue that still needs to be resolved. Transparency in government just doesn't seem like a bad idea. Obviously, the commission that we have asked for is not going to happen at this point, and I understand that. And we're headed towards tonight, towards the certification of Joe Biden to be the president of the United States. And we will work together in this body to be able to set a peaceful example for the days ahead. I yield the floor.
Democratic leader.
Senator from Nevada, Senator Cortez Masto.
Senator from Nevada.
Mr. Vice President.
And the Senate has resumed its debate on the Arizona electoral vote certification. You can watch all that live on C-SPAN 2. We're waiting for debating certification.
All right, folks, we are able to, because when C-SPAN goes live in the chambers, that is deemed to be fair use. And so that's one of the reasons why we are monitoring this here. And so we were showing you what was taking place right now in the United States Senate, and they're going to be continuing to certify this election. It's going to get done tonight. You saw Langford there speaking. He was one of the people who joined, who the Lincoln Project called the Jim Crow 12, who joined them in trying to challenge the electoral folks, the votes. So it's not like I really want to hear what he has to say after what took place here. During the show, I was going to actually play for you guys this particular video here. It was a great video that was put out by the folks at the Lincoln Project that really summed up these individuals here, who they call the Jim Crow Caucus. And what you're dealing with the people who want to challenge this. And matter of fact, I'm going to show a couple of videos. And so the Lincoln folks, they put this tweet up. We made this pre-election thinking that we'd never have to release it. After the events of today, we decided to post. And so let me go ahead and play this video. Check this video out that was done by the folks at the Lincoln Project.
At first, they seem ridiculous. The big egos, the bad ideas. Some of them seem almost comical. Not here, the people say. Yet men like these find their following because they know how to use hate and fear. Fear of foreigners, immigrants, and minorities. Of Jews, Muslims, Christians. They dismiss the experts, demonize the press, promise they alone can deliver better lives and brighter futures. If they could only be rid of the obstacles to that power. Eventually, enough people buy it. They hand the fate of the nation over to madmen. But then suddenly, it's not so funny. The military deploys on the streets to protect the leader. Names appear on enemy lists. Opposition voices are silenced or imprisoned. The leader promises the right bloodlines will survive, and the wrong ones will be purged. It's an old story, one that could never happen here. The very idea is ridiculous, almost comical. There's no one dividing us, no one telling us who to hate, to put in cages. No one demonizing the press, dismissing the experts. No would-be savior claiming he alone can fix our problems if only the obstacles to power are removed. No one singling out the other, telling us what should become of them. No enemy lists, no threats of imprisonment. No one lashing out when their ego is threatened, demanding absolute loyalty and using the military to control the streets. No, it can't happen. Not here. We know too well how it begins, and it's always been up to us how it ends.
All right, folks. And the Lincoln Project people said they did never release, but well, that's what they have here. I'm also show another video they put together. Donald Trump can't act like he didn't play any role in what took place today, because he did. He gave the order. Watch.
Proud Boys, stand back and stand by. Many of you have traveled from all across the nation to be here, and I want to thank you for the extraordinary love. That's what it is. They could take it away from all of us, from me, from you, from our country. This was a fraudulent election. I know how you feel. I know your pain. I know you're hurt. We love you. You're very special. That I will totally accept the results of this presidential election if I win.
Folks, that was Donald Trump. They included some of the comments that he made today that, and apparently Facebook has apparently released as a pulled that video. Again, here he was talking about, talking about, his usual nonsense, and that's what he was doing. There were some people out there, the U.S. Capitol Day, who were flying the Confederate flag, and you might remember this video that was done that garnered 11 million views. That speaks to anybody today carrying the Confederate flag, and it's amazing how Republicans have fallen in love with that flag. And yet, Donald vetoed the National Defense Authorization Act because it included the renaming of bases named after Confederate generals.
The men who followed this flag 150 years ago knew what it meant. Treason against their country, the death of the United States. America defeated the men who followed that flag. Those with honor surrendered and cast it aside forever. So why does it keep showing up today at events supporting Donald Trump? And why does he call the folks who carry it very fine people?
I think there's blame on both sides, but you also had people that were very fine people.
What does it say that they're all in for Trump? What does it say that he won't condemn a flag of hate, division, and losers? For us, it says this is a time for choosing America or Trump.
Folks, all of this is important because we have to understand what is going on here. You heard me use the phrase the Jim Crow caucus. That is a phrase that has been used to describe these Trump MAGA people who are the ones who led to today, the people who wanted to block the electors from being certified. They are indeed traitors to the country. They are indeed folks who should be prosecuted for sedition because they don't want to count the votes of Black people. Watch this.
Jim Crow caucus is here, and their racist agenda is front and center. Its leaders, Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley, Marsha Blackburn, Kevin McCarthy, a dozen Republicans in the Senate, and 140 in the House want to overturn the votes of tens of millions of African Americans, to throw them out, to count white votes in white counties, but to eliminate black votes in cities. The votes they want to strike down are from places like Atlanta, Philadelphia, Detroit, Milwaukee. Generations fought and died for civil rights, with no right held higher or earned with more blood and pain than the right to vote. But to the Jim Crow Republicans, black votes don't matter any more than black lives. Remember their faces. Remember their names. Remember their agenda.
The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
So, folks, we have been monitoring all of this. We have been looking at this, focusing on this, and we need to understand exactly what is going on. And one of the people who we should never forget, those of you who are in Missouri, you should pay attention to Josh Hawley. This is the man who was on Fox News, on multiple networks, saying he was going to lead this effort to challenge what happened today in the United States Senate. Blood is on his hands, the hands of Josh Hawley, the U.S. Senator from Missouri.
Hey, Senator Hawley. Traitor. There's a word you may have heard of. Scumbag. Snake. Criminal. Sedition. We don't use that word much these days. We haven't had to. Making treason great. But you and your pals are doing your best to bring the word back with a seditious plot. Band of fools.
It's a move that will delight President Trump and rankle Republican leadership.
Hawley says he will object when Congress convenes to certify the Electoral College vote next week.
Overturning a free and fair election to keep a defeated president in office illegally? For that loser. That looks really bad, Senator. Averted. Rather rule in a dictatorship than serve in a democracy, Josh?
Wow.
Serve either way, Josh.
Goodbye, folks.
It seems your fancy education didn't teach you the difference between loyalty and fealty. Ass kisser. Maybe if you'd actually served your country, it would make sense. Why didn't you? You shouldn't be in the U.S. Senate. You're a disgrace. You should be in jail.
All right, folks, he is from Missouri. And speaking of Missouri, Congresswoman Cori Bush, who was elected to Congress, she has made it clear she is not going to be standing by and just watching what actually took place here. What she said is, she said these folks need to be removed from Congress. That's what she laid out. And in fact, she said she is going to introduce a bill. Let me pull the tweet up, please, so I can show you to where she lays out exactly what she wants to do. You see this tweet here. I'm calling for the removal of every GOP member involved in today's coup. If you're with me, sign your name to my petition to send them a message that you will not stand for their treason. Hold the GOP accountable for the coup attempt. It's GOPcoup.com. It's GOPcoup.com. Now, what she also did was she posted that, and it's not just her as well. I'm going to pull it up here. Ilhan Omar, she also had posted that she also wants to take action against these Republicans. And this is what she tweeted 3 hours ago. This is the tweet right here. I am drawing up articles of impeachment. Donald J. Trump should be impeached by the House of Representatives and removed from office by the United States Senate. We can't allow him to remain in office. It's a matter of preserving our republic, and we will need to fulfill our oath. That right there is Congresswoman Ilhan Omar from Minneapolis, and so from Minnesota. So, folks, that's what you see going on right here. There are police who are all around, armed guards stationed inside of the United States Capitol, standing outside of the chambers to protect those particular members. The folks in the folks who are in the U.S. House, they are at an undisclosed location. They too are going to be meeting as well, and so we're going to be following that. And so what I'm going to do is, in a moment, I'm going to return to what's taking place on the floor of the United States Senate, where members are still also speaking and talking about what's happening with the electors. Let's go right to the floor of the United States Senate.
Was the vice president about 20 minutes ago when the Senate came back in session, according to the vice president's press secretary, Devin O'Malley. Vice President Mike Pence has returned to the Senate. He never left the Capitol. The vice president was in regular contact with House and Senate leadership, Capitol Police, the Department of Justice, and the Department of Defense to facilitate efforts to secure the Capitol and reconvene Congress. And now we will finish the people's business. That's a live shot of the Capitol. You can see the barriers. Usually there are people walking back and forth there. This is the east front of the Capitol. The Senate is on your far right. The House chamber is down on the far left. And we're waiting for the House to come back into session. The Senate, though, you can watch live on C-SPAN 2. Lauren in Grapeland, Texas, please go ahead and make your comment about the events of today.
Hello.
All right, folks. So we are again looking at what's happening on the floor there of the U.S. Senate. That they were in session, and then the folks at C-SPAN actually bailed out of that session. And so we are, if they go back, we'll go live to them just to understand the craziness that we are seeing take place. There's Anthony was just telling me there's a West Virginia senator. His name is Derek Evans. This idiot literally posted a video of himself participating in the storming of the Capitol. Newly elected to the West Virginia House. But guess what, y'all? Little Derek has decided, he's been posting videos of him storming the U.S. Capitol. Now Derek has decided to delete those videos, to delete the videos here. And so here is, this is a cell phone recording of a portion of a now, so go to my phone. This is a cell phone portion of a video where he was recording himself, posted on Facebook of them storming the Capitol. Come on, Derek, be a big boy. Why are you now deleting your videos? Could it be that you realize you look like a complete ass storming the Capitol? That could be it. And so we just wanted to show y'all that. Look, y'all, you've got some crazy folks. So here's another video here. Go ahead and pull the sound of Derek Evans. Listen to this.
House! Our house! Our house! We're at the door now. This cop's on the inside starving us now. Our house! Trump! 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 Woo! We did it! Woo! We're in! We're in! Derek Evans is in the Capitol! Let's go!
When you have thugs who are following behind Donald Trump, that's how they operate. That's how they are in action. All right, folks, that is it for. Let me do this here. My final comments there. This is why we create this platform, folks, and so we need your support for us to continue to do what we do. At one point, right now, there are 7,753 of you watching on YouTube. There are 1,600 of you who are watching us right now on Facebook, and the 98 watching on Periscope. Periscope is ending March 31st, 2021. We had 16,500 people watching us live on YouTube. But apparently, because we showed the video of the woman who was shot, as well as the noose that was hanging at the U.S. Capitol, they ended our live video. They said that it was inappropriate for children. I don't understand what that's about, because the show is not for children. It's a news show. But it's a news show, the children should also be aware. That's why it's a news show. And so this is what I need our followers, everyone, to understand. We have signed a contract to build out our own OTT channels. That means that we would have our own OTT channel that will be on Roku, that will be on Apple TV, that will be on Amazon Fire Stick, that will be on Twitch, and it will be able to be on our own website as well. That, folks, is $145,000 a year. I told you I'm very transparent with you in terms of what we're doing. $145,000 a year. Why is that important? Because if we have our own OTT channel, YouTube can't cut us off. Well, YouTube can cut us off, but we don't go away. Our channel can carry that sort of content. We appreciate a partnership with YouTube, but the reality is we need to have the freedom and flexibility to cover the news that we see fit, and not be in a situation where 16,500 of you are watching us live on YouTube. 3,000 at the same time, 3,000 of you are watching us on Facebook at the very same time, and both of those feeds were stopped. We went from 3,000 people on Facebook and it went down to 678. And so when you hear me talk about joining our Bring the Funk fan club, the number is very simple. If 20,000 of our followers contribute an average of $50 each, that's $4.19 a month, 13 cents a day. That's $1 million. That allows for us to be able to afford to have our own OTT channels, so we are not stopped anywhere at all. It allows for us to hire additional staff, like let's say a congressional correspondent. Allows for us to be able to do more things like this, where we're here in Atlanta. On March 21st, there's going to be the St. Louis mayoral election. We want to be in St. Louis in February and March, covering that. In June is likely going to be the elections in Virginia, a new governor. African Americans are running for governor and lieutenant governor. We want to travel all across the state to cover that. And so your support makes it possible. Those of you who join us on YouTube, but you can also join us directly, as opposed to going through YouTube, where we have to share the revenue with them. If you join us directly, we get the full 100% benefit of that. And so I appreciate those of you who are YouTube members, but I would encourage you to actually join us directly via Cash App, Square, PayPal, Venmo, or Zelle. That way we get the full 100% of your support, and we're not sharing 45% with YouTube. So you can support us. And again, what our goal is very simple, is to raise these dollars in order for us to provide the kind of news and perspective that you're not going to get anywhere else. Folks, these black media folks, the rest of them, they weren't live tonight. They didn't have the kind of show that we did. And understand, my staff wasn't there. Literally, they were not in the control room because we're located right there at Black Lives Matter Plaza. I wanted them to be safe. And so we did the Tonight Show completely virtual. That's why we do what we do. The quality product that we put on, we think is also tops. When you see this show, when you see the guests that we pull in, when you see the quality of our graphics, when you see what we do, we put on a quality show. And so your support absolutely matters. And so what I really want us to understand is, I want our people to understand that we can actually build this, and we don't have to ask anybody's permission to do so. So if you take let's just do some math here real quick here. If you take the 7,700 people who are watching right now, on YouTube, and the 1,400 people who are watching us right now on Facebook. So let me if I take 7,700 with the 1,400 people who are on Facebook, and I take the 100 people who are on Periscope, I'm doing 9,200 people. Let's say those 9,200 people gave us an average of $50. That's $460,000. That means we can completely pay for the OTT channel. And just so y'all know, the OTT channel that we want to have will actually have a 24-hour live stream. So when you turn on Roku, we will be 24 hours. All the content that we have, the rallies that we cover, the events that we have, we will be able to put together an entire 24-hour channel, like the Young Turks, like CNN and MSNBC. It will also allow for us to develop new shows as well. And so we are literally in the middle of doing that. We are building something, folks, that is tremendous here, and we need your support. So please support us at Cash App, $RM Unfiltered, PayPal.me/RM Unfiltered, Venmo.com/RM Unfiltered. You can also support us with Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. If you want to use a credit card, use Square by going to Roland, go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. If you want to send a money order, that's great. You can do so by sending it to 16 to New Vision Media, NU Vision Media Inc., 1625 K Street Northwest, Suite 400, Washington, D.C., 2006. And so, folks, we are building something something significant here, and that's why we need your support. So we thank you so very much. We thank you for being with us. We thank the 16,500 earlier. 8,000 of you came back, and so we're just going to keep building this thing out, folks, and grow this show from a show to a network. So thank you so very much. Thank my staff for operating on the fly, for being able to change quite quickly. That is what we do as well. And so, as I said, look, I don't have millionaires and billionaires who are supporting our show. I don't have folks who are writing those checks. You, the people, are making it possible. You, the people, are making it possible, and we certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much. The folks at C-SPAN, they had cut away a little bit earlier, and then and here I was about to dip out as well, but I'm told that Cory Booker is now speaking, and I am trying to get out of this page here. Give me 1 second, folks. If I can quickly catch Cory speaking on the floor of the United States Senate, just give me a second. I want to be able to do that. So let's see here. If C-SPAN would allow me to do so, I want to catch his comments. Let's go to it and give me 5 seconds. This will be the last thing that we here we go. Go.
Off of the shame of conspiracy theories as opposed to doing the incalculably valuable, patriotic thing to speak truth to our nation. Our democracy is wounded, and I saw it when I saw pictures of yet another insurgency, of a flag of another group of Americans who tried to challenge our nation. I saw the flag of the Confederacy there. What will we do? How will we confront this shame? How will we confront this dark second time in American history? I pray that we remember a Georgian. His words, all I can say is we must in spirit join together like those Georgians on a bridge called the Edmund Pettus, who joined hands, who were called threats to our democracy, who were called outrageous epithets when they sought to expand our democracy, to save it and to heal it, when they joined arm in arm and said what we should say now, commit ourselves to that ideal, that together we shall overcome.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I yield up to 5 minutes to the Senator from Nebraska, Senator Sass.
Senator from Nebraska.
Mr. President, thank you. And Mr. Vice President, let me just say before I begin, thank you for the way you have fulfilled your constitutional duties and your oath of office today. It obviously hasn't been easy. Colleagues, today has been ugly. And when I came to the floor this morning, I planned to talk about the lesson of 1801, because I'm kind of a history nerd. And I wanted to celebrate the glories of the peaceful transition of power across our nation's history. It feels a little naive now to talk about ways that American civics might be something that could unite us and bring us back together. 1801 blew everybody's mind all over the world, by the way. John Adams loses to Thomas Jefferson, and Adams willingly leaves the executive mansion and moves back to Massachusetts, and Jefferson peacefully assumes power. And people all over Europe said, that must be fake news. Those must be bad reports. There's no way any executive would ever willingly lay down power. And yet Adams, in defeat, did something glorious to give all of us a gift. I wanted to celebrate that, and it feels a little bit harder now. This building has been desecrated. Blood has been spilled in the hallways. I was with octogenarian members of this chamber that needed to have troops and police stabilize them to get down the stairs at a time when a lot of our staffs were panicked and under their desks and not knowing what was going to happen to them. It was ugly today. But you know what? It turns out that when something's ugly, talking about beauty isn't just permissible. Talking about beauty is obligatory in a time like that. Why? Why would we talk about beauty after the ugliness of today? Because our kids need to know that this isn't what America is. What happened today isn't what America is. They've been given a glorious inheritance. This is the 59th presidential election. If the vice president wasn't the chair and if the president pro tem was, I'd have made some joke that Chuck Grassley has voted in 2/3 of those 59 presidential elections. He's laughing. It's not as good as hit dear, dear dead, but it's still got a Grassley laugh. I don't think we want to tell the Americans that come after us that this republic is broken, this is a banana republic, that our institutions can't be trusted. I don't think we want that. We don't want that in this body. We don't want that in our hometowns. I don't think we want to tell our kids that America's best days are behind us, because it's not true. That's not who we are. America isn't Hatfield's and McCoy's blood feud forever. America's a union. There's a lot that's broken in this country, but not anything that's so big that the American people can't rebuild it, that freedom and community and entrepreneurial effort and that neighborhoods can't rebuild. Nothing that's broken is so big that we can't fix it. Generations of our forefathers and our foremothers, probably not a word, our ancestors, have spilled blood to defend the glories of this republic. Why would they do that? Because America is the most exceptional nation in the history of the world, and because the Constitution is the greatest political document that's ever been written. Most governments in the past have said might makes right, and we saw some of that hooligan nuttery today. Might makes right. No, it doesn't. God gives us rights by nature, and government is just our shared project to secure those rights. America has always been about what we choose to do together, the way we reaffirm our constitutional system. We've got some governmental tasks, and we all in this body could do better at those governmental tasks, but the heart of America is not government. The center of America is not Washington, D.C. The center of America is the neighborhoods where 330 million Americans are raising their kids and trying to put food on the table and trying to love their neighbor. That's the center of America. We're not supposed to be the most important people in America. We're supposed to be servant leaders who try to maintain a framework for ordered liberty so that there's a structure that back home where they live, they can get from the silver frame of structure and order to the golden apple at the center, as Washington would have said it, which is the things that they build together. The places where they coach Little League, the places where they invite people to synagogue or church. Sometimes the big things we do together are governmental, like kicking Hitler's ass or like going to the moon. Sometimes there is governmental stuff, but the heart of America is about places where moms and dads are raising kids, and we're supposed to serve them by maintaining order and by rejecting violence. You can't do big things like that if you hate your neighbors. You can't do big things together as Americans if you think other Americans are the enemy. Look, there's a lot of uncertainty about the future. I get it. There's a lot that does need to be rebuilt. But if you're angry, I want to beg you, don't let the screamers who monetize hate have the final word. Don't let nihilists become your drug dealers. There are some who want to burn it all down. We met some of them today, but they aren't going to win. Don't let them be your prophets. Instead, organize, persuade, but most importantly, love your neighbor. Visit the widower down the street who's lonely, no one tell anybody that his wife died and he doesn't have a lot of friends. Shovel somebody's neighbor, shovel somebody's driveway. You can't hate somebody who just shoveled your driveway. The heart of life is about community and neighborhood, and we're supposed to be servant leaders. The constitutional system is still the greatest order for any government ever, and it's our job to steward it and protect it. Let's remember that today when we vote.
Democratic leader.
Senator Durbin.
Senator from Illinois.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. In March of 1861, a Springfield lawyer caught a train to Washington. His name was Abraham Lincoln. It wasn't his first trip here. He'd served as a congressman 15 years before, and he returned in the beginning of the Civil War to serve as president. It was a different place than he knew it as congressman. In 15 years, it had changed a lot. The Spriggs boarding house across the street, which is now the Library of Congress, was gone. And this building was changing. Big changes. They're building a dome on the Capitol. but they were also in the earliest days of a war, and President Lincoln was counseled, stop building the dome. It costs too much money and we can't spend any more time on it. And he said, no, we're going to build that dome and we're going to finish it. That dome and this building will be a symbol of this country that will survive this civil war and come back strong. So they built the dome, they won the war, and since those days, that dome and this building have been a symbol to this country, a symbol of unity and of hope. Tourists come through here before COVID-19 by the tens of thousands. And if you've ever noticed their tours, they're often shushed. People are saying, show some respect for this building. We know this building in the rotunda as a place where some of the greatest American heroes of both political parties lie in state, and we go there to honor them. We know this building because we work here. We enact laws here that change America. We gather for State of the Union messages from presidents and honor the people in the gallery. This is a special place. This is a sacred place. But this sacred place was desecrated by a mob today on our watch. This temple to democracy was defiled by thugs who roamed the halls and sat in that chair, Mr. Vice President, the one that you vacated at 2:15 this afternoon, sat and posed for pictures, those who were roaming around this chamber. What brought this on? Did this mob spring spontaneously from America? No. This mob was invited to come to Washington on this day by this president for one reason, because he knew the electoral college vote was going to be counted this day. He wanted this mob to disrupt the constitutional process which we are part of. This mob was inspired by a president who cannot accept defeat. If you wonder whether I'm going too far in what I say, just read the transcript with the Secretary of State from Georgia and listen to this president's wild conspiracy theories, one after the other, swatted down by that Republican elected official and his attorney as having no basis in fact. This president begs, he coaxes, he even threatens that Secretary of State to find the votes he needs. In any other venue, that would be a simple, obvious crime. The lengths he will go to are obvious. The Texas senator says to us, well, many people still agree with him, you know, when it gets down to the bottom line. Many people have fallen for this presidential position that it must have been a rigged election if I lost. Well, I would say that after we've lost count, 57 lawsuits, 62 lawsuits, I've heard so many numbers, after 90 different judges, after this president took his case, the best he could put together, to the highest court in the land across the street, where he has personally chosen 3 justices on the Supreme Court, I say to the senator from Texas, you know much more about that court than I do. I don't believe they let that paper that he sent up there even hit the desk before they laughed it out of the court. And that's the best he had to offer. No evidence whatsoever of this rigged election and this fraudulence. The senator from Texas says, we just want to create a little commission. 10 days, we're going to audit all the states, particularly the ones in contention here, and find out what actually occurred. And it really draws its parallel in 1876, Hayes and Tilden. Don't forget what that commission, that so-called political compromise, achieved. It was not just some ordinary governmental commission. It was a commission that killed Reconstruction, that established Jim Crow, that even after a civil war which tore this nation apart, it re-enslaved African Americans. And it was a commission that invited the voter suppression we are still fighting today in America. Let me close by saying this. The vote we're going to have here is a clear choice. of whether we are going to feed the beast of ignorance or we are going to tell the truth to the American people. We saw that beast today roaming the halls. Let's not invite it back.
Majority Leader.
President, I yield up to 5 minutes to the Senator from Kansas, Senator Marshall.
Senator from Kansas.
Thank you, Mr. President. Freedom of speech and the freedom to protest are provided in our Constitution. And while I share the same frustration many Americans have over the presidential election, the violence and mob rule which occurred at the U.S. Capitol today and across the country over the past year are unacceptable, and I condemn them at the highest level. And like all of us in the chamber, I'm thankful for the heroic law enforcement officers who worked feverishly to restore order so that we get back to the electoral certification process. During my 29-year career as an obstetrician and gynecologist, too often I had to sit down with patients and give them a very bad diagnosis. It might have been a young mother of 3 who I delivered all 3 of her babies, now with metastatic breast cancer, or perhaps another woman with advanced cervical or ovarian cancer, all with a very challenging prognosis. But before I sat down with each one of those patients, I carefully reviewed all their labs, their x-rays, and their pathology to make sure I had the facts straight. But at the end of the day, my final recommendation was always going to be a recommendation from my heart. I want my fellow Kansans and all Americans to know that I've given as much consideration and thought surrounding the issue objecting to a state's electoral college votes as I did considering the treatment plan for a serious health concern. And today's decision, once again, is from my heart. Mr. President, I rise today to restore integrity to our republic. And I rise to join the many of our colleagues who are all concerned for current and future generations. We must restore faith and confidence in one of our republic's most hallowed patriotic duties, voting. There is no question our U.S. Constitution empowers state legislatures to execute free, legal, and fair elections. Unfortunately, in several states, the clear authority of those state legislatures to determine the rules for voting were usurped by governors, secretaries of states, and activist courts. Our laws and Constitution should always be followed, especially in a time of crisis. I don't rise and undo a state's legally obtained electoral college votes. Rather, I rise in hopes of improving the integrity of the ballot to hold states accountable to the time-proven constitutional system of the electoral college. This is why I urge the formation of an electoral commission to give constructive suggestions and recommendations that states can make to make our elections once again safe, free, and fair after a year of jarring irregularities. We must and will have a peaceful transition to power. To all my fellow Americans, I have no doubt that our republic can go stronger through this difficult day. May God bless this great republic. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield back.
Democratic Leader.
Senator Duckworth.
Senator from Illinois.
President, in 2004, I packed up my rucksack, laced up my boots, and deployed to Iraq, ready to sacrifice whatever was asked of me, all because I love this nation, willing to sacrifice my life if needed. Because I believe in the sanctity of our electoral system, which had declared George W. Bush my commander-in-chief. I earned my wounds, proudly fighting in a war I did not support, on the orders of a president I did not vote for, because I believed in, and I still do believe in, the values of our nation, because I believe in a government of, by, and for the people, where voters choose who leads them, not the other way around. I have spent my entire adult life defending our democracy, but I never thought it would be necessary to defend it from an attempted violent overthrow in our nation's own Capitol building. Well, I refuse to let anyone intent on instigating chaos or inciting violence deter me from carrying out my constitutional duties. You know, when my Army buddies and I raised our right hands, when the 45,000 troops in Arizona raised their right hands and swore to protect and defend the Constitution, We did not qualify our oath by saying that we'd follow orders only when the commander-in-chief was someone whose election we were happy with. Just like when every senator in this chamber was sworn into office, we didn't mutter under our breath that we discharge our duties only when it served our political interests or helped us to avoid the wrath of a petty, insecure, wannabe tin pot dictator on the precipice of losing power and relevance. No, there is no ambiguity here. Joe Biden won the election with a record number of votes. Republican officials nationwide confirmed those results, including in Arizona, as has judge after Trump-appointed judge. Even Trump's attorney general admitted that the United States Department of Justice had not found widespread fraud that would have affected the outcome. Yet still, many of my Republican colleagues are asking us to ignore all of that. With no evidence of their own, they're asking us to ignore court rulings, ignore Republican election officials, and even worse, ignore the will of the people across this vast, great nation. By trying to overturn this election, they are placing more trust in Reddit conspiracy theories over the Constitution, proving that appeasing Trump is more important to them than protecting the most basic tenet of our republic, the adherence to free and fair elections. There's one thing I know, it's that my troops didn't sign up to defend our democracy in war zones thousands of miles away, only to watch it crumble in these hallowed halls here at home. Yet that is what this effort amounts to, an attempt to subvert our democracy, and in the process, it is threatening what makes America American. Because in this country, the power of the people has always mattered more than the people in power. That is the ideal that this nation was founded upon. That is why a few patriots threw some tea in Boston Harbor, why Washington crossed the Delaware, why suffragists were arrested a century ago, and why my friend John Lewis crossed that bridge in Selma in 1965. It is why millions spent a Tuesday in November standing in line, braving a pandemic to make their voices heard. Listen, this administration has always had an adversarial relationship with the truth. Trump always cries conspiracy, always foments chaos whenever something doesn't go his way. But today, we here in this chamber have the opportunity to prove that here in this country, truth matters, that right matters, that the will of the people matters more than the whims of any single powerful individual. I have no tea to throw in Boston Harbor tonight, and I regret that I have no rucksack to pack for my country, no Black Hawk to pilot, nor am I asking for any grand gesture from my Republican colleagues. All that I'm asking of you is to reflect on the oaths that you have sworn, on the damage done to our union today, and on the sacrifices made by those who've given so much to this nation. From the service members at Fort Huachuca and Marine Corps Air Station Yuma to the marchers who bent America's moral arc a bit more towards justice with every single step that they took, every bridge that they crossed, then ask yourself whether the democracy they were willing to bleed for, the country that each of us in this chamber has sworn to defend, is worth damaging in order to protect the porcelain ego of a man who treats the Constitution as if it were little more than a yellowing piece of paper. I think we all know the right answer.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I yield up to 5 minutes to the senator from Kentucky, Senator Paul.
Senator from Kentucky.
I wrote a speech for today. I was planning to say that I fear the chaos of establishing a precedent that Congress can overturn elections. Boy, was I right. Chaos, anarchy. The violence today was wrong and un-American. The vote we are about to cast is incredibly important. Now more than ever, the question is, should Congress override the certified results from the states and nullify the states' rights to conduct elections? The vote today is not a protest. The vote today is literally to overturn elections. We've been told that this is a protest, or this is about an electoral commission. No, it's not. It's about whether to seat the electors that have been certified by a state. It's not about an electoral commission. It's not about a protest. You can go outside if you want to protest. This is about overturning a state certified election. If you vote to overturn these elections, wouldn't it be the opposite of what states' rights Republicans have always advocated for? This would doom the Electoral College forever. It was never intended by our founders that Congress have the power to overturn state certified elections. My oath to the Constitution doesn't allow me to disobey the law. I can't vote to overturn the verdict of states. Such a vote would be to overturn everything held dear by those of us who support the rights of states in this great system of federalism that was bequeathed to us by our founders. The Electoral College was created to devolve the power of selecting presidential electors to the states. The Electoral College is, without question, an inseparable friend to those who believe that every American across our vast country deserves to be heard. If Congress were to give the power to overturn the state's election, what terrible chaos would ensue every 4 years? Imagine the furor against the Electoral College if Congress becomes a forum to overturn states' Electoral College slates. It's one thing to be angry. It's another to focus one's anger in constructive ways. That hasn't happened today, to say the least. We simply cannot destroy the Constitution, our laws, and the Electoral College in the process. I hope as the nation's anger cools, we can channel that energy into essential electoral reforms at the state level. America's admired around the world for our free elections. We absolutely must fix this mess and restore confidence and integrity to our elections. We must.
Democratic leader.
Senator from Virginia, Senator Warner.
Senator from Virginia.
Mr. President, I think like most of us, I'm still pretty reeling from what happened today. What I was going to talk about was the work that I'm most proud of since I've been here, with my good friend Richard Burr and all the members of the Intelligence Committee, about a multi-year report we did into foreign interference in our elections. Probably our top recommendation of that 5-volume bipartisan report was that any official or candidate should use restraint and caution when questioning results of our elections. Because when you do so, you often carry out the goals of our foreign adversaries. Use caution because whether knowingly or unknowingly, and whether that adversary is in Russia or China or Iran, their goals are pretty simple. They want to make it appear to Americans, to folks around the world, to their own people, that there's nothing special about American democracy. I was going to try in a feeble way to maybe reach some of the rhetorical heights of Ben Sass, and I knew I couldn't do that. So instead, I know I'm violating rules here. Today's the day for violating rules. So this is a photo that appears today on one of the most prominent German newspapers. You don't need to draw up it. You can draw up photos from any newspaper or any television feed anywhere across the world. And what is this photo of? It's of thugs in the halls of this Capitol, diminishing everything we say we believe in this democracy. And when you look at those images, realize those images are priceless for our adversaries. God willing, tonight, in an overwhelming way, we're going to take a small step in a bipartisan way to start restoring that trust of our people and hopefully the billions of people around the world who believe in that notion of American democracy. Remember, these images will still endure. I yield back.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I yield up to 5 minutes to the senator from Missouri, Senator Hawley.
Senator from Missouri.
Mr. President, thank you. I want to begin this evening by saying thank you to the men and women of the Capitol Hill Police, the armed, the National Guardsmen, the Metropolitan Police, and others who came to this Capitol, who put their lives on the line to protect everyone here working inside of it. And I want to thank law enforcement all across this country, in my home state of Missouri and everywhere else, who do that day in and day out. And I just want to acknowledge that when it comes to violence, this has been a terrible year in America this last year. We've seen a lot of violence against law enforcement, and today we saw it here in the capital of the United States. And in this country, in the United States of America, we cannot say emphatically enough, violence is not how you achieve change. Violence is not how you achieve something better. Our Constitution was built and put into place so that there would be, in the words of Abraham Lincoln, no appeal from ballots to bullets, which is what we saw, unfortunately, attempted tonight. There is no place for that in the United States of America. And that's why I submit to my colleagues that what we're doing here tonight is actually very important. Because for those who have concerns about the integrity of our elections, those who have concerns about what happened in November, this is the appropriate means. This is the lawful place where those objections and concerns should be heard. This is the forum that the law provides for. Our laws provide for those concerns to be registered, not through violence, not by appealing from ballots to bullets, but here in this lawful process. And so to those who say that this is just a formality today, an antique ceremony that we've engaged in for a couple of hundred years, I can't say that I agree. I can't say that our precedents suggest that. I actually think it's very vital what we do. The opportunity to be heard, to register objections is very vital, because this is the place where those objections are to be heard and dealt with, debated, and finally resolved in this lawful means, peacefully, without violence, without attacks, without bullets. And so, Mr. President, let me just say now briefly, in lieu of speaking about it later, a word about Pennsylvania, which is a state that I have been focused on, objected to, as an example of why people are concerned, millions of Americans concerned about our election integrity. The state of Pennsylvania, quite apart from allegations of any fraud, you have a state constitution that has been interpreted for over a century to say that there is no mail-in balloting permitted except for in very narrow circumstances that's also provided for in the law. And yet, last year, Pennsylvania elected officials passed a whole new law that allows universal mail-in balloting, and did it irregardless of what the Pennsylvania Constitution said. And then when Pennsylvania citizens tried to go and be heard on this subject before the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, they were dismissed on grounds of procedure, timeliness, in violation of that Supreme Court's own precedent. So the merits of the case have never been heard. The constitutionality of the statute actually has never been defended. I'm not aware of any court that has passed on its constitutionality. Actually, I'm not aware of anybody who's defended the constitutionality. And this was the statute that governed this last election, in which there are over 2.5 million mail-in ballots in Pennsylvania. This is my point, that this is the forum. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court hasn't heard the case. There's no other court to go to hear the case in the state. And so this is the appropriate place for these concerns to be raised, which is why I have raised them here today. And I hope that this body will not miss the opportunity to take affirmative action to address the concerns of so many millions of Americans, to say to millions of Americans tonight that violence is never warranted, that violence will not be tolerated, that those who engage in it will be prosecuted, but that this body will act to address the concerns of all Americans across the country. We do need an investigation into irregularities, fraud. We do need a way forward together. We need election security reforms. I bet my friends on the other side of the aisle don't disagree with that. We need to find a way to move forward on that together so that the American people from both parties, all walks of life, can have confidence in their elections and that we can arrange ourselves under the rule of law that we share together. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.
Democratic leader.
Senator from Pennsylvania, Mr. Casey.
Senator from Pennsylvania.
I rise tonight to defend the people of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, to defend the more than 6.9 million voters who voted in this election, and to condemn in the strongest possible terms this attempt to disenfranchise the voters of Pennsylvania based upon a lie, a falsehood. That same lie sowed the seeds of today's violence and today's lawlessness here in the Capitol. One of my constituents, Susan from the Lehigh Valley, the community of our state where Senator Toomey lives, recently wrote to my office and perhaps said it best. She said, and I quote, "We cannot allow anybody to overturn the legal votes of the citizens of Pennsylvania. This would be the ultimate destruction of our democracy," unquote. Susan had it right. We cannot allow anybody, and she put that word in all caps, to overturn the legal votes of the people of our state. Let me address the allegation regarding the Pennsylvania Constitution and the General Assembly. Somehow that the General Assembly didn't have the authority to enact no excuse mail-in voting, that process for the people of our state. First, the law in question, Act 77, was passed in 2019 and was implemented without any serious question as to its constitutionality. The law was passed by a Republican-controlled General Assembly, House and Senate. It was only after the 2020 election, when it became clear that President-elect Joe Biden won Pennsylvania by a little more than 80,000 votes, did some Republican politicians in our state decide to challenge